Welcome everybody to the show. We'll be getting under road in just a second when the backup channel starts going. And before we continue, just remember that this show today is sponsored by Billy TK and the New Zealand Public Party, Reclaiming New Zealand for all the people. Please sign up today if you can, ladies and gentlemen, as many people as we possibly can to sign up to this party before the election, as well as subscribe to the channel and follow it on Facebook and all of those other social media contact things that you can get. Now, with that being said, let's start the show. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't make it fun. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state is Vinny's jokes. Now we've got Billy TK here, ladies and gentlemen, leader of the NZPP, live from his home up north. Billy, welcome back.
Kia ora. Great to see you, Vinny, and hi everyone.
Now, today we've got a couple of the final questions. Last interview, we basically covered everything off the top of my head that I could think of. Is this guy a New World Order plant? Does he know about this or anything? And the final phrases that we've got to iron out is geoengineering, Māori sovereignty and radicals, and what was the other one? Yes, is the Tamaki's being involved. So let's get through those first. So geoengineering, what say you?
Yeah, I've studied it for a long time. I've photographed it across the United States and Canada. I've photographed it across Europe, and I've been following Geoengineering Watch for some time. So, you know, these are just one of the things that we know that's amongst the list of many of bad things that cannot be explained, that we know are happening. Mainstream media, government say they don't happen, yet we film them, we watch them. I was in the South Island recently, and you know, you'd see 2-3 jets at a time across the sky, just, you know, two going one direction, one going another, just hammering it. So, you know, like I always say, if it looks like a duck, talks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's a duck. And so I'd like to know from an official point of view what those things are. I've been studying it for a long time. I think I'm pretty well on top of it. But as I say, it's not about conjecture. It's not about conspiracy theories. It's about proving the facts and acting on that basis.
Now, the Tamakis, have you been in negotiations with them? Are they planning on joining the NZPP?
Yeah, like every party, like I always say to everybody, is that we want to talk to anyone that is keen on getting rid of this government and protecting our country. And we had a really good look at the Vision Party, which is what Hannah leads, Hannah Tamaki. And we won't be working with them. We don't feel that they've got the right thing in mind as to what needs to be done to save our country. I think they do know what's at threat, but I think just like many of the minor parties, they're majoring on the minors and not majoring on the things that really matter right now. And as Rosa said the other day, there is no time to muck around. This is the fight of our lives right now. And if we don't wake up to it and combine, unite, then we're just going to lose our country. And the world is watching us because, you know, they know that if we fall first, then the rest of the world will follow. So the short answer is no, we won't be working with them. And but we do have another 3-4 parties that we're talking with right now that we're pretty keen to merge with. And as we said the other day, we're going to be able to announce our merging partner. I've got to fly to Wellington in the next day or two to do the old paperwork thing. It's always down to the paperwork, Vinny. So we're just putting our hearts and our money and everything on the line here to get the blooming thing done. We are the biggest movement. There's nothing like it. I've spoken to other party leaders recently, and they just can't. I mean, I can't really fully digest all of it. I'm still getting over it myself, but it's massive. We've gone from averaging 100 new members signing up a day to now over 200. So it's not letting up. More and more people are tuning in. The trolls are getting less and less and less, and the people that thought I was a communist agent or a Chinese agent or a UN agent, they know now I'm not. I'm just a Kiwi guy that bloody cares for our whānau, cares for our future, and for all of us New Zealanders and Kiwis.
Now, that's the last issue as well that people have raised with me that they've wanted me to ask you about is
Yeah,
the
sure.
Māori sovereignty question, your father being a Māori sovereigntist and you working for the king and that kind of thing. Do you want to see some kind of separatist or Māori to be treated as separately or different and special,
Oh,
legally
no,
speaking?
not at all. And one of the things that actually annoys me, and I was speaking about this with my wife a little while ago, is this thing around race-based medical treatment. Now, every time I've been to the hospital with my kids, my tamariki, and with my wife, we get treated absolutely bang on fine. We haven't felt racially neglected or racially profiled to get any better treatment. And I think it's unnecessary to go down that way. What I would like to see is that the tokenism is stripped out of the way that the treaty is used. I say in my live presentations to the chairs of both Māori and Pākehā that the treaty document itself is a protective document for all of us because our agreement is with the Crown. It's not with the United Nations. It's with the Crown. So my absolute belief is that this document is now a New Zealanders document. It's not just a Māori document. And just a slight correction there, in terms of sovereignty, my father is a individual sovereignty person as well. So he's been involved in that for a long, long time around his personal sovereignty as well as a Māori citizen of New Zealand Aotearoa. And I support sovereignty from a thing that, Māori lands that are Māori lands should remain Māori land. I don't think Chinese people should, or any overseas investors should come in and use our poverty against us. I think what we need to do is protect those whānau and Māori assets like that. No problem with that at all. But I don't think there's such thing as, or should ever be such thing as, two laws for one people or separate laws for different people. That really disturbs me when I hear that because, what we're talking about here in New Zealand around freedom and democracy is a law-based initiative, really, because true law and good law protects everybody, and it's one law for all people that live in a jurisdiction. So that's my personal view on it.
And we're not revealing which parties you're working to. You're looking to work with at this point until the deals are done and signed. Is that correct?
Yeah. One of the parties that I'm happy to announce because we've already signed off is the New Zealand People's Party. They were registered up until recently, until they allowed themselves to lapse. These 750 members in that will re-sign over to us. They are what I call an immigrant party, and they've learned. It's full of it's a funny thing actually, Vinny, because it's full of people that want to be Kiwis. They want to feel welcome. They want to feel included in society. These aren't the strange immigrants that come over to New Zealand and they hide in their own communities and don't want to know us. This party is full of people that care deeply about our country. There's a lot of Chinese involved in it that are absolutely scared that New Zealand is fast becoming like communist China, and they want to stand up against it. The Indian community, they're onto it. They can see what's going on. And I'm really amazed at how awake these people are. They know exactly what's going on with Agenda 2030, Agenda 21 Sustainable Development Program. They know what's going on with Bill Gates. They are awesomely awake, and they want to get this government out and protect us from any future government that's not for the people. So that's New Zealand People's Party. They've got thousands and thousands and thousands of people in their network across the country, and they're all becoming behind in the New Zealand Public Party, which is outstanding. There's another
And
two,
they've
possibly three parties.
incidentally got the exact same acronym, so that's handy for the advertising there.
Well, that's what we had a good old crack up the other day about that. They were saying, it's NZPP, the same as what they stand for in terms of the leaders of their party, but it's New Zealand Public Party all the way. They're good people. I'm kind of thrilled that they are awake as they are, and what we need to do is have the rest of the political parties wake up as they have, and jump on board, because we're going to get one shot at this. It can't be about guessing, Vinny. This is the time.
Yeah, and that's another thing. We've got to get rid of this defeatism. We've got to get rid of doubt, and we're going to replace that with hope and faith, courage, bravery, and valor, actually. The definition of which is that you are faced with a threat so huge, so insurmountable, that the chance of you winning is very, very slim. In fact, the chance of your death is quite high. But you stand your ground and you fight anyway, because it is the right thing to do and it needs no further justification.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And I think, you know, and I watched the other parties very, very closely, and I watch the mood of the public very closely right now, as you know, Vinny, and it really just astounds me that that these parties aren't getting over themselves. You know, we really need to understand that if we don't protect our democracy and bring control of the government back to the people, there will be no monetary reform. I tried to approach social credit yesterday because they're the monetary reform experts, and all I got was a text from Chris Leach saying, happy to talk, but no way we'd work with New Zealand Public Party. And, you know, that just floors me. And this is a guy that that got 486 votes, I think, or 499 votes in the last election. He thinks he's going to cross the line at this critical time right now. And I'm just calling it the way it is. We don't have any time anymore to muck around like this. And, you know, if I'm willing to put myself on the line, then it's time that we be honest and we call it the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I kind of cauterized it this morning on my Facebook chat, but I'll bring that up in a moment. And in the meantime, I just wanted to direct the audience to this page over here. This my bubba. This is the reason I'm telling the truth is so that my little lamb doesn't grow up to be a little sheep in this country. Real cute, eh? And the real thing about it is if you don't win, like for me, I'm kind of like a bit of a non-violent extremist, which means I'm extremely non-violent. But the kind of idea that I have is that we've got to win. All right, it doesn't matter how we win. What matters is that we win. And it reminds me of what was it? Braveheart. If we join, we can win. And if we win, then we'll have something that none of us have ever had before, a country of our own. And if we have a look at the screen over here, a question for all minor parties. Number one, do you support the ending of national sovereignty, the setup of a UN world government, and a high-tech global police state? Or two, do you support autodeterminism, free elections, and constitutional protections for human rights? Reason I ask is every party currently in Parliament has selected option one, and they got 95+% of the votes last election.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it? It's just absolutely crazy. And when you look at it from that point of view, you realise and have to accept how important it is that we combine to help make the people of New Zealand wake up to what's happening. You've got a beautiful little girl there, mate. Congratulations. And it's about her future that we're talking about here. It's, you know, whether she's going to live in a high density populated, super city zone that you can't get out from, where you're radiated and all that stuff. And these aren't, you know, as Rosa said the other day, mate, you know, she's a complete realist. She knows all about Agenda 21 Sustainable Development Program. She knows about Agenda 2030. And this is
just
not...
By the way, hey, mods, can you please post the link to Rosa Corey's interview in the chat? So if you're at the chat live right now, ladies and gentlemen, copy that link and watch that video after this one. You're going to want to. Sorry, Billy, go ahead.
No, she's wonderful. I'm a big fan of hers. I have... it's glad to know she wanted to contact, so I've reached out to her, and hopefully we'll be talking in the next couple of days. But she knows how desperately urgent and acute this issue is, and she is right at the forefront of battling, battling cities, states, counties, you know, councils, and she's right at the forefront of it. And we need to listen to someone like that. I mean, she knows a lot more about the detail of the program than I do. I mean, I've got a pretty good understanding of it, but she's actually litigating against it right now in court, so she knows all the ins and outs of it. And you know, it's just amazing. And as I keep on repeating myself here, I know, but you know, the fact is that none of the political parties are really standing on a hard ground talking about this, and none of them realise how important it is right now to understand this next election is really it. And the things that we've heard over the last few days, Vinny, are absolutely, you know, this is game on and in game territory.
Yeah, and I think that's the main point to take away from here is that there really isn't any other options left. Nobody else actually has the movement, the strength, and more to the point, the broad base of issues. And again, all the last issues that we tried to clear up, you've just cleared them up. So there is now currently no reason for anybody to really doubt Billy, and all the things that have been said about him so far that I've been looking into my colleagues saying have turned out to be untrue. So guys, just do what I do. All right, eat a bit of humble pie and accept the facts that just because you want everything to be a conspiracy so that you can expose it, and trust me, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted you to be a conspiracy, Vinny. I wanted to expose you. and yet I can't because the evidence just isn't there. Guilt by association, that's a logical fallacy. Did you have a picture with this person? Sure. Did you go to this conference? Yeah, sure. What did you accomplish at that conference? Absolutely nothing. We left without signing any deals. They invited us back and we never went back. So again, all the red flags that people have rightfully put out about Billy's possible involvement and things of that nature, upon further investigation and context, turn out to be several green flags instead, which are like, yep, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, kind of thing. So I'd like people to alleviate their concerns on this. And I was also very encouraged to see Cross the Rubicon's video just before today. He met you in Christchurch recently, and he's had his concerns alleviated as well. And for incredibly cynical YouTubers like us, I never seen anything like that happen.
Yeah, he's a really good guy, Lee, and I knew that. As we had a cup of tea with each other, and I said to him, look, if I was anyone looking at something like this, I'd be asking the same questions as well. How does someone from a little farm in Northland who starts broadcasting on Facebook go viral, end up having well over 1 million engagements, ends up creating a large political party in 4 weeks? And has the velocity and the momentum created like this? It's unheard of. People tell me it's unheard of. I didn't know when this started just what we were doing, and that's because it's an organic people's movement, and that can't be fabricated. You cannot. Doesn't matter how much money you have, you cannot you cannot plan it or fabricate it or buy it, as .com and the Opportunities Party found out. And I think what Lee was able to do was just sit down and actually have that cup of tea and a talk with me. And I think he realised pretty smartly that what he was seeing was just an ordinary dude at the front of a massive, important and vital movement. And I think he's awesome, and he asked the right questions, and I completely get it, and I understood it. And what we've done on our website, nzpp.org, we've actually created an executive page about us, and it deals with all the accusations, who I am, what I've been doing, and all that for people to go and have a look at. And that's the best way to do it. Like I said to someone the other day, there's no skeletons in my closet. There's only faults and mistakes like every other blinking human. And but I'm as the word is tututu Kiwi, and just an ordinary guy, really, everyday sort of person that I would rather, especially after the weekend, Vinny, like you and I are talking off here. Sometimes I think, what am I doing here? I mean, Todd Muller has resigned after only a few couple of months, and he couldn't handle the heat, and he's in a massive party, and so to be at the front of this,
I was just
dealing
thinking,
what we're dealing with,
it'd be great to go to the National Party and say, hey guys, maybe you should dissolve your party and join the NZPP. I mean, they might actually win an election for once,
Well, funny you should say that. We did have a laugh about that in our morning brief this morning.
I mean, you never know. And people under desperate circumstances, they will do desperate things, whether or not those desperate things are good for them or not. And I think it's the massive amount of uncertainty and defeatism within the public consciousness now that just needs to be alleviated to a large degree. Have faith, have hope, and just basically get on the field. It's not enough to be awake, ladies and gentlemen. I noticed that this morning. I needed to pee, and I was awake. awake, but I didn't get out of bed because it was so cold and I just wanted to stay under the blankets or something like that. And I think intellectually, that's what a lot of us are doing right now. We are awake to this, but we ain't getting out of bed. All right? That's what we've got to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see, the people that we're coming into contact with. Sorry for the background noise, guys. It's hey. Sorry, guys. This is about as real as you can get, eh? So there you go. These are my little ones running around. One of them's 5 years older than your bubba, and it's lunchtime in the holiday house for the kids. And what I mean by holiday house, it's our house. But the worst thing that people can do is think they can't affect change. As Rosa Corey said the other day, and I'm quoting her here, that the secret is to realise you can make a change, and you can affect change and protect ourselves. But it takes all of us to get off our backsides, and really there's two decisions to make. You either suck your thumb, roll over in the fetal position, or you get up and you go, no, I will play my role and add to the sum of effort that's going to go into protecting our country. And that's what people have got to really wake up to themselves. And if I sound like I'm getting more aggressive about this, it's because I know how urgent it is. And perhaps we can open up that in the next part of our discussion.
I think your intention really makes a difference. And I started going off with things like if I had something to do with it and it was real big and real complicated and I was stressing out about it or whatever, and there's lots of moving parts or whatever, I kind of remind myself that you have exactly enough time to do exactly what needs to be done in the exact amount of time that is available, right? And when I do that, my stress levels go down and I get whatever I needed to accomplish accomplished. And I think maybe that's what Dr. Leonard Caldwell told me about the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. So if you're telling people that there's a positive message and that they can make a difference, 30% of them, because they believe it, they'll actually start going out there and making a positive difference. But if the reverse is true, if you tell people, no, nothing you can make will do any difference, no, there's a secret thing going on behind here, I'm afraid that has an effect too. So let's get that placebo effect out there and get people to understand that this is it. And when I say that, I recall Red Star 309. There's this dude who was helping to set up the Occupy protest nearly 10 years ago. And he called me up on the phone and he says, Vinny, this is it. And I didn't believe him. And he got real upset emotionally and hung up the phone on me. And surprisingly enough, that wasn't it. I thought about to myself, hey, there's a whole bunch of people with tents. Man, the New World Order is going to be terrified of that. Oh, they haven't thought of this, Oh my God, people with tents. What are we going to do? And surprisingly enough, they just cleaned them all out and sent them packing. And the country got ever subsequently more enslaved. That's what happens when people prematurely say, this is it. And I've been waiting cynically for it to come, and it is now here.
Yep, well said, Vinny. And I think, and that's why the old boy who cried wolf and Chicken Licken who says that the sky is falling down on us. Those sorts of people that have been, that were saying that a while ago. I think they felt the fear, but I don't think they discerned the signs of the times. And what you do if you're a keen observer, you just add things up. And I always say to people, when you look at Jacinda, skip past the rhetoric, skip past what she says, and just observe and confirm the behaviour. And when you do, some very, very disturbing things come up. And that leads us on to the next thing, why would suddenly there be an enabling in the Electoral Commission structure for 1 million mail-in votes? Why is she also starting to talk about online voting and also trying to get Māori groups to endorse that? And at the same time she's asking for that endorsement, she's offering to fund them. Now, these are the questions that need to be asked. Why is she doing that? And then why are we receiving from no less than 12 different sources information that's telling us that the government is preparing to lock us down in the first or second week of August? And then the next thing you look at is, and this is a fact, why don't Labor have any policies that they're campaigning on? Why is that? Why, unlike any other political party in history, especially and certainly in New Zealand history, why don't they have policies that they can announce now that they're going to campaign on? Because what I fear is that they will get closer and closer. They're riding a magic carpet of public opinion right now. But I tell you what, once all that starts to fray and once the reality of the situation hits in, I reckon that magic carpet is going to fray and then it's going to fall apart. But what I think they're trying to do is really, if they can, is not announce their policies until about a week or two out from the elections, and by then it's the first of the votes, special votes may have been casted, and it's not good. So they're very, very smart, these people. They're trying to hedge us off in many different ways, just talking about now, of course, mainstream media has picked up on the fact that COVID-19 is now mutated to be 6 times more viral and more deadly than what it is currently. And of course that mirrors just 3 weeks ago when Dr. John Leonidas from Stanford University then announces in fact that the COVID-19 virus was actually even less than his first projections of lethality, and so there's no reason for these lockdowns and this type of reaction to the COVID-19 crisis. So he goes out and says that, hey presto, a week or so later, it's now 6 times more deadly than it was the week before that. So just look at behaviour, watch the media, mainstream media respond around the world, the whole narrative around, the type of language that they use, the second wave is coming, the second wave is coming. So what do we get conditioned to think? The second wave is coming. And then what does the second wave mean? Lockdown. And it's just this indoctrination that people go through during these psychological operations. And these are real. I mean, they're not even attempting to hide the psychological warfare aspect of this, or operational activity that they're doing. And that's just speaking up about that is, disarms it. But no one else is saying this stuff. So.
Nobody, and that's the reason why I'm actually getting hope and faith by being involved and helping you out. And of course I'm not being given any orders. I'm not being given any scripts or anything like that. I was just like, bro, I'll tell you what, I've been screwed around by a whole bunch of other political parties. I ain't going to help you out. I ain't going to lift one finger unless you just give me $1,000. $1,000 is basically nothing. I can raise that in a week from my listeners, and in fact these last couple of weeks, almost every week we've been raising $1,000 from the listeners. So I've got no obligation to you financially, and the reason what I'm doing here is getting people like Rosa with her book lovely book on Agenda 21 on the show, as well as many international experts that I've interviewed over the years to give policy advice and strategy, because I think that's what the party needs. That's what the listeners and the followers of the party need as well. Is if we're going to be doing this, we need to be as well informed as we possibly can. Now, you asked before about how can they make all this legislation and do it, and it requires I think, what was it, Glen Innes, the Glen Innes housing operation some years ago that Penny Bright was involved with. They found out that they would invite the Glen Innes community leaders, Māori groups or whatever groups, around to these community halls where they would be discussing these issues, and they would pay them each $100 in order to attend. None of the rest of the community would attend, but all of these people did. Then they would come in, give them a presentation saying, hey, it's going to be great, we're going to refurbish all of these nice state houses, and then they sign the deal off, and then they renege on the deal and they take all of those houses off and then sell them to Chinese investors. So this is how they do it. They bribe your local leaders, they get them in there to okay something, switch the script like a bait and switch on your community leaders, leave them holding the bag and leave you with no assets. This is how they're doing it. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I had a terrible thought while you were saying that. Labor hasn't produced any policies? they're going to wait until the very last minute and they're going to steal every single good policy from every other party, just lie, go hardcore in the last couple of weeks with millions upon millions of dollars of saturated advertising across every single medium, get enough stupid people to believe them and to give them another chance, and then boom, this country's in lockdown forever, theoretically speaking. And it occurs to me that there's three things, that this government has in common that they're pushing. CO2 and global warming, COVID and racism. You know why? Because that divides everybody. And you know why it's so easy to divide people with those three things? Because CO2, COVID and racism share the exact same properties. They're colourless, odourless, invisible. All right? So it's over there. It's behind you, Billy. All right? It's over here. It's behind me. It's everywhere. Right? And that way you can make everybody afraid of something that they can't even see is there. And in their fear, they will turn to whoever they think will save them.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's just at that point that you raise about bribing and funding community leaders, so-called. Like they're what they're doing at the moment, what the Labour Party's doing through their Māori MPs, they're trying to organise meetings across the country with Māori iwi groups, hapu groups, etc., and they want to talk about the COVID-19 COVID-19 health crisis. Now, I guarantee you that's a complete setup, is to try and get these people to swallow this corrupt narrative that they're putting out there about the whole crisis. And but there's always the little golden carrot that's dangled at the end of these types of things around funding. But the interesting thing is around the funding at the moment is that the government's took the big game about getting out this post-crisis economic recovery funding out there, but it's not getting out there. There are so many projects that are stuck in the pipeline because the money is so-called stuck in the pipeline. And this is where you start getting into the threat of the promise of funding and getting people to do what they want, because if you do what they want, they'll fund you. And that's absolutely cannot be stood for.
Yeah, it reminds me of the bailouts in the 2008 financial crisis, where a lot of that bailout money just went to big bonuses to the big CEOs and corporate scumbags who caused the freaking crisis. People like John Key, who admitted on breakfast television that he and his derivative sporting mates in the banking industry were the ones who helped cause the crisis. And then he comes in and says, "Don't worry, I'll solve this crisis." But you were the one who caused it.
Yeah, exactly. And as well, I was so pleased the other day that I found some old Facebook postings of me slamming John Key and for selling state houses to Australian companies to manage them. It's the same thing. Like I've been saying at my live presentations that have been absolutely jam-packed. is that. That's one thing to get rid of Labour, but what we don't want is the national team to go in there doing the same things except with a different coloured blazer on. And this is the issue, is that behind them all, is deep-rooted globalism, puppets that are getting paid loads of money to play the game. And I think one of the things that should give people comfort is that we're out there talking about these things, we're becoming targets, and it's just. That's just unbelievable. And look, I've just seen a question from Terry Opines, who has spoken from the hip without any facts supporting them, asking me if I'd treat any Pākehā and Māori different and I'd sign a document to that. What an idiot question. I promote that New Zealand has got to come together as a family, regardless of race. That's just the divisive tool of the left to keep us all divided so they can conquer us. So I'm not into any of that nonsense. If you're a New Zealander, you're a New Zealander. If you're Māori, you're Māori. If you're Pākehā, you're Pākehā. No one can change what they are. I'm lucky that I've got my feet in both camps.
Which I came up with a technical term for that. You're half Pākehā, half Māori, and that makes you a Pākehā half.
I love it. Exactly, and I'm proud of both sides of my heritage. My surname is Takahika, my dad is Māori, so naturally I lean towards that side because that's where I live in New Zealand. I don't live in France and I don't live in Ireland, but I'm equally as proud of those parts of my heritage. That's what makes me the person I am today. But in government, my job is to serve the people of New Zealand, and that's regardless of what blinking race they are, and bring some sense of equity and justice in the way that the government behaves and how it responds to people. And we all know, anyone with half a brain that's ever done any history knows that some outrageous things were done to Māori people and how they had land and that confiscated. Okay, we can deal with those honestly and park those to the left, because right now all that matters is that we protect our country, protect each other, and get this government out and stop the globalist program that's coming our way down the pipeline. And if we don't, then it's we only have ourselves to blame.
Yeah, we can either fall for the divide and conquer tactics, attack
Yep.
each other, or we can have a look at the ruthless criminal sociopathic scumbaggery that are already in control of us and will have total control that will be completely irresistible if we don't win this election for the people.
Yep, that's exactly right, and that's the narrative that suddenly will come out of nowhere on Facebook. Billy is a Māori separatist. What a load of rubbish. I'm a person who is absolutely inclusive. I love everybody. Nobody gets treated different by law. Law is law. We just make sure that those laws are what the people want, that are fair and equitable, and have justice in the very core of it. And again, it's just people that are uninformed about me either as a person or what I stand for that thinks that just because my name is Te Kahika. And that's completely wrong, and it's a lie. It's dishonest. So people who call me a Māori separatist, they're liars. It's not true in any way. I'm for the people.
Yeah. And the other question is, when you ask a question of somebody like, who's funding him? Who is he associated with? Who is it? And you don't actually then do what you're supposed to do as a journalist. You investigate those questions and then you answer them. Okay, I have seen this too many times. Oh, who's he funding? Who's he talking to? And all they do is they create all this huge cloud of suspicion with no facts whatsoever to actually answer or alleviate any of those concerns. And your job as a broadcaster, as a journalist, is to do exactly that, and only that, to a large degree.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I just saw an interesting comment here. Someone referring to Professor John Ioannidis. No, you're incorrect. John Ioannidis did come out and said that the lockdowns, if people wanted a lockdown, that was up to them, but it shouldn't have been put out there as a government or a state strategy to deal with COVID. He felt that was completely unreasonable and an overreaching of the government. So to the gentleman that just posted that about John Ioannidis, they're actually misquoting him. I follow John quite closely. In fact, I posted a post from him on my Facebook post today, actually. So that's a misquote.
And this the last one as well, pledging allegiance to the Queen. I found this out quite by accident, actually, that once you become inducted as a member of the New Zealand Parliament, you have to pledge loyalty to the Queen and all her successors. And I was like, hold on, are we under a hereditary dictatorship here? And what can we do about that? Because as you've said, New Zealand doesn't have a proper enforced constitution and things of that nature. I mean, are we heading towards republic under an NZPP government?
I think what we need is constitutional protection in our country, and we don't have that right now. And if it involves republicanism at some point, I think that's something that we, as we mature as the country, that we should be once we get free of the shackles of globalism. I think anything's on the table to look at how we can best protect ourselves. Right now, there is not 1 ounce of constitutional protection for us in the way that this government administers laws and how it overreaches, and that's why this government can do what it's doing by tinkering with the New Zealand Bill of Rights through the Amendments Act, and also the introduction of the COVID-19 Health Response Bill, which effectively deletes the effectiveness of the New Zealand Bill of Rights. And people often ask me about that, but what we would have to do in that instance, so that the founding treaty document remains, is that you would write that into a constitutional framework, which it sits outside of right now. People don't really understand how unprotected we are as a country. There is no, and never has been any posse comitatus, which you'd be aware of, Vinny, was deleted by President Obama, which was the protectory law in the United States that prevented federal troops being deployed against US citizens. Well, that's been destroyed by a government that very closely looks like our government here now, and but we've never had those types of protections. So I think republicanism is a sign of maturity, but we better make sure that we know what we're doing with it, and that we don't. I'm not against the idea of that, but what we don't want to do is lose the value of the history that we have. There's some beautiful history that we have here. As you know, I'm an ex-New Zealand Army soldier, and our soldiers have served with high distinction as Commonwealth soldiers, and I don't think we ever want to lose sight of that and some of the good aspects of our proud history as a Commonwealth country. But what we need to do is essentially, in the next chapter, God willing, we will have that opportunity, is to look at how best New Zealand is set up from a governmental point of view so that it serves the people of our country, and that's what it's all about. I've just seen a question from someone saying, so who was funding NZPP? Well, number one, you're looking at them. Number two was the goodwill and generosity of Kiwis that come to our events. We have a koha box, and people put in $2, they put in $20, they put in $5. That's how we do it. We've had whānau send donations and koha to our bank account, but man, it's we don't have any big money at the moment. Once we complete our merchant account, we can then start to really ask for all the financial support that we've been offered. But we're living literally on a pay it forward basis. When we go to one event and people put money in the koha donations box, that helps pay for the next one. And that's how close to the bone that we are. And if anything, what that does, that tells you how big this movement is and how legitimate it is. Because without the big budgets of all the other parties, including some of the minor ones that got some good money, we've done what we've done, and that's done without having money.
That's right. Now, there are communist-funded groups in New Zealand that are funded by globalists, such as Action Station, and I'm not sure if Black Lives Matter really qualifies in New Zealand. It may do, it may not, but there is extra political pressure being put in this election to divide and conquer people by basically groups that don't actually have any political loyalty to a large degree. They're simply being funded by globalists to cause up their crap. So I'm wondering what to do about that to a large degree, but that's kind of a side issue. But again, the monarchy itself, let's have a look back at the Treaty of Waitangi, and it becomes sort of like something to protect all of us. It didn't make Māori special, didn't say we're sharing everything or anything like that. It was simply a fair treaty to bring us all together as one. And I think that people have forgotten that, and also in the 80s, they basically changed the treaty to mean a whole bunch of stuff that it didn't originally mean. And I think that's where the treaty grievance industry has come from, with these families of what Ruben Taipari up north has called the kūpapa. All right, I spoke to some kaumata when we went down to the Temple of the Four Winds. I was the only journalist in New Zealand history to actually be invited there. I was very, very honoured. And they said that when one of the guys there, he went overseas in the 70s to fight for the New Zealand Army in Vietnam, and when he came back, his land had been taken off of him. Right, so this isn't happening because necessarily the government's doing it. What he said is that there was a intermarriage thing that was going on, where people from elite families would intermarry into the Māori royalty, as it were, and then they would essentially change those families' directions to be more pro-globalist rather than more sovereignty of New Zealand as a whole. And I thought, wow, that's sounds exactly like what happens to almost every good idea in history. Somebody comes in eventually and starts messing with it until eventually it gets messed with enough that it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, well, you sound like you know a lot more about about that topic than me, brother. But look, at the end of the day, you get all sorts of people in every community and every culture in New Zealand, and what we have at New Zealand, the New Zealand Public Party, is we actually have a platform for every one of them to come in and talk about how they feel and what they want on their piece of New Zealand. And I think the strength of what we're doing is that they've got a genuine everyday person willing to have a listen to them. I mean, I've listened to South African immigrants, I've listened to East German immigrants that lived in the communist era in East Germany that are absolutely petrified as to what's happening in New Zealand, because they know what's coming down the pipeline. They can see it, they can taste it, and literally in their fluoride water that they drink. And I think what we have here is that, as Ruben said, the term kupapa towards people that are willing to sell people out for money, that can be applied to anyone, that is willing to do that to New Zealand. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people that would rather put profit ahead of principle, money ahead of foundation, and money ahead and power ahead of the future of our country. And that's got to stop. I mean, you look at it. I mean, when you get career politicians like Winston Peters, who really wanted to be Prime Minister for a day. Now, no doubt he's done some good work throughout his tenure as a politician, but he threw New Zealand under the bus. He really did by going left. He threw his own voting constituency under the bus as well. The amount of New Zealand First voters that we have coming over to NZPP is just simply stunning. We did a 700-person presentation last Tuesday in Tauranga, and a heap of them were former NZ First voters that have come over to New Zealand Public Party. I think really what people are wanting is a good, sensible head across the issues. You see, New Zealand Public Party, yes, freedoms, democracy, protection and reinstatement in New Zealand is number one, but we've got some fantastic stuff around, economic recovery, economic prosperity, in terms of getting our country back on its feet again to pay down this horrible debt that, is sitting there, Vinny, for your daughter and her grandchildren to pay. And if we don't really get onto those things right now, including our environmental and medical health sovereignty, we're never going to get this right. And so what I feel that the big attraction for us is that we're saying the things that other parties won't say, but we're also very sensible. I always say keep calm, keep credible, keep factual and on a solid footing when you say things. So that way, that if people want to have a go at you about any ounce of what you say, you can provide the sources of referencing, you can provide the websites and all that, and deal with it as a credible individual. And I think, when you look at our policies that we're talking about now, and we're getting ready to write some good ones up about housing, around monetary reform, and that I think people are going to be really astounded and to learn that we're not just a one-trick horse. We've actually got a whole bunch of tools up our sleeve that we're going to be writing about, so that people can have confidence that when we get into authority and into government, we can actually get the job done. And that's the difference, because when I look at a number of the minor parties, and like I said last week, I did a really good canvassing of all the minor parties before I got into this, and really I didn't get a sense of trust and confidence that any one of them could run a country on their own, let alone defeat a hostile government like the one that we're dealing with.
Hostile to democracy, hostile to truth, and that's why communists call it hate speech, ladies and gentlemen, because they hate speech. All right, because it can topple them, it can destroy them. Words are powerful, ladies and gentlemen. They're magic. They can make you feel something real or make you feel nothing at all. All depends on what words you're using, ladies and gentlemen. They're that powerful. That's why they call it spelling, because when you speak, you are casting a spell. And I think to a large degree, the people in the media and the government at this point are not using magic, they're using sorcery, the darker spectrum of it.
Yeah, and it's funny you should say that, because it's definitely got that. As people know out there, I'm a committed Christian. My wife and I have a little, very humble ministry where we've looked after homeless in Tamaki in Auckland. And up here that we fellowship with. But there's definitely an evil feel about the whole thing with this government. There really, really is. And it's eeping out across the country. We see it. We were in Christchurch on Saturday, Vinny, when that threat came up for us. And just the feeling that New Zealand could have anything like this and allow anything like this to occur to someone standing up for New Zealand was just mind-blowing. It really was. It's just the feeling of evil that's in our country right now at the hands of this government is something like we've not experienced before, I don't believe.
Yeah. The darkness, ladies and gentlemen, it grows in the places that you don't shine the light. and we have yet to have a chance to really get the big flashlight out and see where all those cockroaches are hiding yet. But once NZP gets in, ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you there will be one sound out of the New Zealand Parliament. It'll sound like this. As all these cockroaches go running away from the big beaming flashlight.
And that's why, Vinny, that's why we are getting the threats that we're getting now, and why I've got security people now flipping having to look at all aspects of security now for me. How unbelievable.
Oh, that reminds me, John Carmen, former Secret Service for Reagan. I've had him on the show before, and I asked him if he might give you guys some advice, and he's very, very keen. He's actually probably one of the most advanced protection detail people living on Earth today, and naturally he doesn't have a job because as soon as he starts telling the truth about the corruption in the Border Patrol and the corruption in customs and everything like that, where he worked in the Justice Department, nobody really wants to hire him. So hopefully you guys will have a chat with him because he really wants more information about the threat that the party faces, so we can come up with some good protection plans and give some good protocols for any protection teams that need to be on the job.
Yeah, we've already spoken with him. We had a great conference call with him already, and I've got people right now that are engaging across the country in all sorts of areas. I've got former New Zealand SAS soldiers that are doing all sorts of work behind the scenes. I had a 1st Battalion soldier from the New Zealand Army approach me. He was in the Army at the same time I was, and there's hundreds and hundreds of soldiers that are prepared to back me up. I'm meeting security people today about that, but I can assure you, as Lee from Crossing the Rubicon found out on Saturday, this was absolutely real. The warning that we had and the type of thing, and I think let's open it up while we're talking about it. So what happened is that we had a very high level security detail looking after me in Christchurch, 6 guys, and they have very, very, very good intelligence connections and sources. They got wind that a well-known person of interest who is a recognised international assassin, there's no other word to call it, had arrived in Christchurch at the same time that we had. And what we have around the world, especially in countries like Australia, New Zealand, the US, and Britain, there are different types of jurisdiction agreements where they allow their certain military people to just come into any of our countries without having to go through the normal immigration and type scenarios through passport control and all that. And this guy did. He came through and ended up in Christchurch when we were coming through, and so our guys were onto him immediately. They followed him, and then as soon as they let me know, I did a Facebook on that, went straight live to it and broadcast it. Within a half an hour of me doing that, that guy had turned tail and started to leave Christchurch, heading in the direction of Queenstown, which is a well-known CIA hangout and a good departure zone for anyone wanting to get out of the country quickly and without too much attention. So, these are the types of things. Why? Because we this is a fight for our lives in New Zealand. This is not a game, and this is why people, the trolls that we deal with. Look, just freaking stop it. It's all pathetic when you get a threat which could rob me from my children and my wife and in my life, or threaten us. Just who else is doing that in freaking New Zealand right now? And and Lee was quite taken aback by it. He said to me, "This is like walking into the set of a crazy movie, where these sorts of things live and exist." But no, it's real. It's what we're dealing with. I had a warning a few weeks ago that I broadcast immediately when I was down in Hamilton that this would be coming somewhere down the line, and sure enough, we had our first true potential threat like that arrive on Saturday, and so we've got to take it seriously. This is, I don't think the Outdoors Party or the New Conservatives or or social credit are getting any sort of a hint of anything like this. This is dead serious, and we're taking it very serious. And there's some pretty tough people that are taking it seriously for me on my behalf. And don't get me wrong, I'm no freaking cockroach that just goes away at the first sign of a threat. I'm prepared to stand my ground every time. I tell you, I've had enough punches in the head growing up in Mangere and Papatoi, and threats and that this doesn't make me shit myself and vanish. What it makes me do is go the other way, but I'm more concerned about my family and their safety and well-being. And but this is where you got to decide, I guess, in your own heart, is New Zealand worth putting yourself on the line for? And I had to answer that on Saturday night, because the first thing that we thought of is do we cancel our Christchurch meeting that night? We'd all flown in for it. Our team had worked very, very hard. We ended up having an absolutely jam-packed 500 plus people rally in this massive hall, and it was amazing. But I said, no, we will do it. We will go for it. We've got a great security team that were there. Let's do it, because there's a lot at stake here.
Speaking of which, there are 367 people watching right now. I haven't had numbers like that since the Christchurch Mosque Massacre. If each of you watching right now wants to give this channel a like and a subscribe, ladies and gentlemen, I would be very, very grateful. And also bear in mind that this is also a listener-supported channel and has been so for a good decade. So if you do want to donate and support the show, KiwiBank, PayPal and Patreon options are available in the description below, and also on the homepage of the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. That's Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question, and Eastwood, go ahead, make my news. Now, final points that I'd like to make here, because we talked about the debt that's going to be handed on to my daughter and your children and that kind of thing that this government has got us into. And the concept was the Jubilee. Way back in the day, the British royalty would every 50 years hold a Jubilee where all debts would be cancelled. If you've borrowed some money for a horse, you don't need to pay that off and the horse is yours. If you were loaned money for that horse that you gave out to somebody else, you don't have to pay that loan back either. So everything just basically was fine as it was, and it ensured that generational indentured servitude did not happen. Now, at the moment, these banks are creating money up out of thin air that they don't have in vaults anywhere. Now, in legal terminology, they need to have what's called consideration, which means if you're loaning somebody something, you have to actually have that something to loan. If not, it's called fraud, and you don't need to pay money to fraudsters, that kind of thing. So if that money doesn't really exist, why don't we just pretend it doesn't exist? Hold a Jubilee, get rid of all of the debts, And I thought to myself, I've been punched in my head quite a few times as well, each time for a different reason though. And so eventually my behaviour changed and I stopped doing certain things. And I haven't been punched in the head in years, and it feels great. It feels great. And one last thing, I'm so sorry to keep going on here. When I was quit my job, and I think I got paid around about 20 grand all up for the last month of work that I ever really properly did. Working for Vodafone. I called up Jonathan Eisen, the editor of Uncensored magazine, and I said, hey man, I can't do this anymore. Should I quit my job? And he said one thing to me, and I'll never forget it, and I'm going to pass this on to as many people as I can till the day I die. He says, ask yourself, does it feel right? And I'd like you to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, supporting Billy, supporting NZPP, does it feel right to you? If the answer is yes, let's get on that horse.
Yeah, and it is a matter of the heart and the mind. You've got to. I think instinct tells people when someone is true and the real deal, and that's what Lee from Rubicon Crossing said to me the other day. He said, "Look, at the end of our time together, he said, mate, look, I've had it wrong, and he's a real good bloke, Lee, and I knew he was, and I knew that he just needed to spend some time with me so that people can, as I say in all my broadcasts, come and check me out, look me in the eye, shake my hand, have a hug, feel who I am as a person. I've got no agenda other than saving our countries and our country's sovereignty, our health sovereignty, helping everybody in this country have a better future than the one that we've got ahead of us if we don't stop it. I mean, you look at a lot of people I'm watching the comments when I'm looking down like that, and people are, one guy, Grant Edwards, he's mentally unwell, and he says that anybody who disagrees with me is a troll. Well, that's not true, because I've defended some of the trolls to say what they want to say. And the thing is, with people that disagree with me, as long as they do it with respect, I've got no problem with that. And this is about free speech and democracy, and people being able to have a fair opposite opinion than me. I'm all for that, absolutely. But when you get someone who says continuously, regardless of the evidence, that says I'm some sort of Māori separatist and all that nonsense, it's just rubbish. And they're not very well in their, unfortunately, in their in that grey matter between their ears. And this guy. So thank you for all the loyal people telling Grant to shut up. But I guess as long as he doesn't use foul language, he's welcome to bang his drum. But that's what free speech is.
Yeah, well, trauma affects everybody differently, and if you find out that the world is not as you thought it was when you were raised up, and it's not all sunshine, rainbows, and sugar-coated cupcakes, it can be very distressing, and it can affect your mind, ladies and gentlemen. It affected mine when I first realised this stuff was going on. I'm sure it affected you, Billy, but eventually you get over it, because the final stage of the grief process, you get you get your denial, you get your anger, you get your bargaining, you get your depression, but the one stage that people don't usually achieve is the acceptance stage. Yes, I accept it. Yes, I'm going to do something about it. The depression, the anger, the denial, it all fades away. Thank you very much. Now, bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, if you're being called a conspiracy theorist or something of that nature by the mainstream media, just go, conspiracy theorist? Wow, I never heard that one before. Do you work for Hallmark or something? Because that's really creative, bro. You should write that one down. You could have a massive career. It's the most original thing I've ever heard. I mean, bro, a conspiracy theory. Wow, that's so original, bro. You should seriously have a massive following with original material like that, man. Never seen anything like. I mean, my God. My God. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, mental illness is a thing. According to even the government themselves, 1/5 of people are mentally ill, and they all got votes. So it sort of it sort of explains our political situation that we've been dealing with until Billy's come along. But yeah, anyway, thank you very much for listening, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't make it fun. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state is Vinny's jokes.